Dobrý den, diváci tady v sále, dobrý den i vy, kdo sledujete náš stream ze Zlínfestu, z našeho Filmlabu. Neplánovaně jsme tady přivedli jednoho vzácného hosta, jim Chris Waddington z firmy Newtek, který vám přiblíží technologie, která tady používáme a všechno kolem nich. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
To us, as a distributor of Newtek, it seems like Newtek era is coming. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a big change, and it started in the 2000s, where people started to change their viewing habits and watch content and consume content in different ways. And we, as a company, have always provided people the ability to create their own video content. And, you know, we had the video toaster back in the 80s and also in the 90s, so people could always, you know, it was a very low-cost entry point to be able to come in and buy the equipment to create their own TV shows. But the challenge is that back then is there was still no real way to deliver that content unless you had a broadcaster available to you. And then, of course, in the late 90s and 2000s, the internet basically exploded, and people were now streaming video content, and there was no longer a barrier for people to be able to create their own video content, and that's why we came out with our first TriCaster back in 2005. And, you know, very quickly we saw that people were wanting to create great-looking video content, and they wanted to make it available to almost anyone. And we saw that potential. Which is why when we launched the TriCaster, we considered the web streaming to be just as important as traditional video broadcast output, or maybe a presentation output as well. And then even, again, just a few years ago, when we started to introduce social media publishing into our products, you know, we saw that there was a trend and a change in the way people were viewing content again. So live web streaming is still vitally important, but then we have people that have smartphones, they have tablets, and they are interacting. They want to have a conversation with the person that's producing that content, and that's why social media is so important. So when you look at YouTube, or you look at Facebook, or you look at Twitter, people are wanting to view content and access content in different ways, and they want to have that conversation with the person that is creating that programming. And I think that's why Newtek as a company is particularly successful, and especially with the next generation, because they understand, they are coming from a background where they don't necessarily have a preset idea of how necessarily to create something. They just have an idea, and they know they want to get the message out there, and the ways of doing that today are very different to where they were 5 years ago, and completely different to necessarily where they were 10 years ago. So I think that's why. I think that's why we're kind of very popular, both within broadcast and, again, the next generation.
Who do you think the main group of users would be? Could it be schools? Could it be, for example, musicians? Who would it be?
It could really be anyone. I mean, at the end of the day, video is such a powerful communication tool, and I think we'd all agree that video is the most powerful way to communicate. It can really be anyone. It could be somebody sat at home in their bedroom with, for example, a TriCaster Mini, little compact unit, and they can do, with a couple of clicks of a button and a webcam, they can basically broadcast live, and they can broadcast absolutely anything. It's all down to the message. It's no longer the barrier. The equipment and the cost is no longer the barrier. It's just about having a really great message and being able to get that out there straight away. And then, as you said about music and musicians, in terms of, you know, there's a lot of bands out there that are utilizing the web and streaming their concerts and their music videos live, and creating this huge following on the web without having to necessarily go to the expense or sometimes the hassle of having to go to a big record label. You know, I mean, Newtek again has a lot of history in that. I mean, a lot of our equipment is used to stream the South by Southwest music festival that obviously takes place in Texas every single year, and so we have a huge history in working with musicians as well. And then you look at large broadcasters, they all use our equipment, and then of course you look at a lot of companies and enterprise, and they're wanting to create either web training videos, maybe corporate announcements, or it could just be a CEO of a multi-billion euro company that wants to engage with their regional offices throughout the globe. And they're using video as a tool, as a way to be able to do that. And again, it used to be that you'd have a massive team of people and trucks or crates of equipment. You'd no longer need to be able to do that now, certainly not with our technology anyway.
In short future, will this type of broadcasting, the social media and stuff, roll over traditional broadcast?
I think we are going to see a change. My personal opinion, yes, I think we are going to see a change. I think, you look at the traditional broadcast mediums now, and there is already a level of interaction from the viewer. Whether it's a smart television, so they have web apps, so they have access to, again, YouTube, and it might be Netflix and whatever else it may be. But there's a real hunger out there for people that want to be able to pick and choose what they want to watch and when they want to watch it. So I think there is a change that's taking place in the living room now, in terms of people have more control over the content that they choose to watch. Me personally, I travel quite a lot, so it's very rare that I actually, even in a hotel room, will I turn on the television. What I'll do is I'll get my iPad or my phone or my laptop out, and I may watch a movie, or I may decide that I've missed my sports game, so I want to tune in and watch that remotely, or whatever else it may be. Me personally, I probably spend, in terms of watching live content or pre-recorded content, I probably spend 90% of my time in front of a mobile device, or what people are calling second screen, but for me it's the first screen. The TV has become my second screen, and I think people's viewing habits are changing rapidly. And I think the fact that there's a lot of free services out there, that you can go and you can, again, like I said, YouTube, you've got people on there that are earning a lot of money, and there's a lot of people out there that are huge internet sensations and huge internet stars, and they may not have an outlet on traditional broadcast television, but they certainly have an outlet on the web. That's not to say broadcast isn't important, it clearly is. But I think over time, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out, certainly over the next few years. And I think also, there's a real, like I said, there's a real hunger for people that want to not have content presented to them, but they want to be a part of the show. I think we've seen that with a lot of different types of programming that has been created, and I think it's going to go even further. We have a product talk show which is all about Skype integration, and that product's been specifically designed because people, broadcasters and production professionals, want to be able to bring people into a live show. They want to have the audience come in and participate. It could be an audience member, it could be a guest speaker, it could be a politician, it could be breaking news, whatever it may be. But they need to be able to connect with the audience and connect with the viewer and bring those people in. And again, that's one of the products that we've launched that kind of, again, is really solidifying that whole mantra of having it, instead of it being a presentation, it ends up being a conversation.
It seems like Newtek is the future. Thank you, Chris.
For me, it is, yeah.
Thank you, Chris, for your contribution.
Appreciate it. Thank you.